At 60, he retired cleanly. No side income, no transition, no backup. At 67, he realized the door he closed would never open the same way again. Retirement is often presented as a clean ending, a moment that arrives neatly on schedule. There's a final day, a final calendar entry, a desk cleared out for the last time. Colleagues gather. There's applause, a handshake that lasts a little longer than usual. Someone says you've earned it, and it feels sincere. For a brief moment, everything feels complete. The final paycheck arrives, not as a surprise, but as confirmation. A quiet signal that a long chapter has officially closed. After decades of routine, responsibility, and structure, there's relief in that closure. Relief in knowing the schedule no longer owns you. Relief in not having to explain your time to anyone. And in that relief, a powerful word takes shape. Done. Society treats this moment like a finish line, as if effort has ended, and everything beyond it is simply rest. Retirement is framed as a reward, a long exhale after years of holding your breath, and for a while, that framing feels accurate. Mornings slow down, days feel wider, time stretches instead of compresses. But life doesn't stop moving just because work does. The calendar keeps turning. The world keeps updating. People around you stay in motion even when you step out of the current. What changes isn't time. What changes is momentum. For decades, direction was built in. You didn't need to design it. You showed up, and the structure carried you forward. Retirement removes that structure all at once. Not suddenly, not harshly, just cleanly. And this is where the idea of being done becomes misleading, because finishing work is not the same as finishing movement. It's a transition from guided days to self-directed ones, from external rhythm to internal choice.
The applause fades. The message is slow. The calendar opens. And in that openness, a quiet assumption often forms that the hardest part is over. But retirement isn't a stopping point. It's a handoff. And like any handoff, what happens next depends on whether you're ready to catch it. After the applause fades and the routines dissolve, most retirees carry one quiet belief with them. It's rarely spoken out loud. Often it's never examined. The belief goes something like this: if I ever need to work again, I'll figure it out. Not out of confidence, out of comfort. The assumption feels reasonable. After all, experience doesn't disappear overnight. Skills don't vanish on your last day, and decades of competence don't suddenly stop counting. For most of working life, this assumption holds true. You change roles. You adjust. You find your footing again. Retirement feels like just another transition. But retirement is different. Not because of age, but because of distance. Distance from daily practice. Distance from current systems. Distance from conversations that quietly shape opportunity. Work doesn't only provide income,
it keeps you current. When you step away completely, that current keeps moving without you. At first, the distance is barely noticeable. A year passes, then another.
You still recognize the language. You still understand the problems. But familiarity isn't the same as relevance. The tools change, the expectations shift, the people making decisions rotate out. And none of this feels urgent. That's what makes the assumption so easy to keep. If you needed to step back into work tomorrow, who would you call first?
Most people imagine there would be time to prepare, time to brush up, time to reconnect. But opportunity rarely announces itself in advance. It arrives through relationships that stayed warm, through skills that stayed visible, through presence that never fully left. Without realizing it, the longer someone stays completely disengaged, the more effort it takes to re-enter. Not because they lost value, but because the world around them moved on. This isn't about ambition. It isn't about working forever. It's about optionality, the ability to say yes or no from a position of choice. And that ability quietly narrows the moment someone assumes they'll always be able to step back in later.
At first, nothing feels closed. Life continues. Days stay full in different ways. The distance from work feels intentional, even refreshing. For a while, there's no reason to question the decision. Then, slowly, the signs appear. Not as rejection, not as conflict, just as silence. Messages that once came easily don't come at all. Conversations that used to flow naturally become polite, then brief. It isn't personal. It isn't deliberate. It's simply how professional worlds behave when someone steps out of them. They keep moving. Most opportunities don't come from job listings. They come from proximity, from being in the room, from being part of the discussion, from showing up often enough to be remembered. When someone retires cleanly, that proximity fades, not immediately, but steadily.
At some point, curiosity replaces confidence. Not, can I do this, but would they still want me? The question lingers quietly, often unanswered. The doors don't close with a sound. They don't slam, they narrow. A consulting role goes to someone more current. A short-term project is filled internally. A recommendation is offered, then quietly redirected. No one says no. They simply stop asking. And the longer someone remains outside, the harder it becomes to step back in. Not because of ability, but because of timing. Work environments change faster than reputations, and once relevance fades, it's difficult to reclaim without effort that's harder to apply from the outside. This is the part retirement rarely prepares people for. Not the loss of work, but the loss of access. It's not that the doors are locked, they're just no longer designed to open automatically.
Stepping away from work isn't only about time, it's about influence. For decades, presence carried weight. A word in the right meeting, a note at the right moment, an idea credited because it was yours to offer. When someone retires suddenly, that influence doesn't vanish, but it quietly drifts. Consider the subtle shifts. A former colleague no longer asks for your input. A project moves forward without your perspective. Decisions are made before you even know the conversation happened. It isn't rejection. It isn't disinterest. It's simply the way organizations evolve. Power, in any form, is built on proximity, on visibility, on participation. When you step away entirely, you hand some of it over by default. This doesn't feel immediate. It doesn't feel unfair. Opportunities that once arrived easily now require effort to regain. Connections that were once effortless now need intention to maintain. the balance of choice changes, negotiation power fades, and decisions that were once yours to influence begin to move around you instead of with you. This isn't about failure. It isn't about age. It's about timing. Those who retire cleanly often find their options are narrower than they expected, not because doors are locked, but because momentum has shifted elsewhere. The lesson is subtle. The more abruptly one steps away, the less flexibility remains to step back in on favorable terms. Retirement doesn't have to be a single step into uncertainty. It can be a series of intentional transitions, each one preserving choice, control, and presence. The approach is simple in principle, though rarely emphasized. Instead of leaving work entirely in a single moment, consider stepping back gradually. A few hours less each week, a consulting role that caps your experience, mentoring younger colleagues, volunteering in areas that keep skills sharp and connections alive. These choices don't feel urgent, they don't feel mandatory, but they maintain what matters most: optional pathways. Optionality is quiet but powerful. It means having the ability to say yes or to say no, to participate when it feels meaningful, to decline when it does not. In practical terms, this model protects more than income. It protects relevance. It protects influence. It protects dignity. When the world moves forward, you stay connected. When opportunities arise, you remain visible. And when choice presents itself, it's yours to make, without needing to scramble or adjust unexpectedly. The key is intention. Every decision to step back, to step aside, to step forward should be deliberate, not reactive, not based on pressure or assumption, but chosen. Retirement isn't about stopping work. It's about designing freedom responsibly. It's not a finish line, it's a handoff, a graceful transition that keeps doors open, even if you choose not to walk through them immediately. The better model isn't complicated. It doesn't require extraordinary planning. It simply asks, which doors do I want to keep open? Which skills do I want to maintain? How can I step back while preserving flexibility for the future? And by answering those questions before the final exit, you create a retirement that is both free and capable. A retirement where choice, not circumstance, defines the next chapter. Years of experience, effort, and dedication deserve more than a sudden stop. Retirement isn't a single day. It's a series of decisions, a continuum. The people who navigated gracefully aren't the ones who step away abruptly. They're the ones who leave space. Space to adapt. Space to remain present. Space to choose. Some doors will close naturally. Some will remain open indefinitely. And some will only be accessible to those who maintain connection, practice, and intention. The difference isn't luck, it's foresight. Quiet, steady foresight. What would it feel like to retire knowing that if life changes tomorrow, your choices remain yours to make? Retirement doesn't reduce opportunity, it redefines it. For those who step back gradually, who maintain connection, curiosity, and engagement, the next chapter is not unknown, it is thoughtfully shaped. And for those who choose wisely, retirement becomes more than freedom from work. It becomes the freedom to decide, the freedom to participate, the freedom to remain relevant, quietly, steadily,
on your own terms. Because the most valuable part of this transition isn't measured in money or status or recognition. It's measured in choice. And in that choice, retirement fulfills its truest purpose, not as an ending, but as a carefully designed next chapter.
All chapters eventually come to an end, but some endings are not final. They are invitations. Retirement, when approached thoughtfully, is not a door that closes behind you. It's a doorway to choice. You may step away. You may pause. You may slow down. And yet, the paths forward remain. Quiet. Waiting. Available for those who maintained them.